Hello everyone, welcome to part 2 of this project. In the part 1, we learned how we can create the Amazon Glue crawler to crawl our Amazon S3 buckets, wherein we then are able to use Amazon Athena to be able to query our data. So today, now we want to explore this other part, which is creating tables on Amazon Redshift and also crawling this Amazon Redshift so that ultimately we can then be able to load data using Apache Airflow to automate it and put that data inside Amazon Redshift. Okay, now let's get going, guys. The first thing we want to do right now is we want to go to our AWS. Okay, now what we want to do right now, we want to look for Redshift, type Redshift right here, and then right click to open a new tab. Okay, and right here we are going to be provisioning a Redshift cluster. So you can come right here and do create cluster. Okay, I'm not sure if there is still a free version of Redshift cluster. In my case, I don't have, but I think previously we used to be able to have. So if you have a free version, use that. If not, you have to pay some few dollars for this. And since you're only using this just within this space of this project, which shouldn't be more than 2 hours for you or something, okay, so or maybe at most 3 hours, so I would encourage you that after this project, make sure you delete your clusters and all the different data that you have in your S3 bucket, so that you don't keep getting charged for all of this, especially your Glue and also your Redshift. Make sure you please delete all of that if you are not going to be using them anymore. Okay, so now the first thing we want to do right now is let us give our Redshift cluster a name. Okay, in my case, I will just give it this name. You can see this is the unique key that identifies a cluster. So my cluster is Redshift cluster 1 customer churn. Okay, here I will say I will choose, and then I will go and choose the smallest right here. You can see this is 4 CPU, $1 per node per hour. So I will click that, and then I will say I want 1 node. Okay, again, if you have the free version or the free or the trial version, please just use that. But what we are doing is different from this Redshift serverless. This is not serverless. So let us close that. Okay, and then we need to give we need to assign an admin username. Okay, for me, I'm going to give it a username right here. Okay, I give it that name. If you also look at this, I did not check load data sample data because I don't need it. If you check this, then it's going to automatically load. It's going to by default load this data set into your Redshift cluster. Maybe you want to use it to practice or do something, right? But we don't need it right here, so I will uncheck it. Okay, and then I will put a username. You can do auto generate password, but for me, I don't want that. I want to use my own password, so I'm going to put my password right here. I don't need to say show password. Okay, and then if you look at this, by default, on creating this Redshift, Amazon is already creating an IAM role for us that will give our Redshift this different access, all these different commands, full access, copy, unload, select statements, and what have you. Says that the policy also grants permissions to run select statement for related services such as S3, CloudWatch logs, SageMaker, and AWS Glue. So I think this permission should be enough for us. Okay, and then I'll come right down right here. You can see that there is a default VPC right here, default subnet, default security group right here, configuration. Let's just leave that as default. Then I will say create cluster. Okay, and this is going to be on top right here. You can see close this. You can see that we have, and also take note that you need to make sure you are in the region of your S3 and your Glue. Just make sure that you watch this region right here. Okay, you can see that the Amazon Redshift is creating this Redshift cluster for us. This is going to take some few moments, so I'm going to stop this video and then resume back again after it finishes provisioning or creating this Redshift cluster. Okay, see you later, guys. Now you guys can see that our Redshift cluster has been successfully created. Very good, guys, very good. Now that we have done that, the next thing we would like to then do is to then create table on our Redshift cluster. If you click this, I can come to query editor version 2, click that. It's going to open a new tab. Okay, and then you can see right here that it says Redshift cluster 1 customer churn blah blah blah, and then you can click this 3 dots. You can then say create connection, because now we want to create a connection to our database, that's to our data warehouse, which is the Redshift cluster, for us to be able to create table. Okay, remember what we have right here, guys, that our Glue has been able to crawl this S3 and have saved our data temporarily in that database that we created in our Glue. Right now, we want to be able to load that inside our Redshift. Okay, now for us to be able to load that, we need to create table with the necessary schema, with the necessary columns or fields that we want in our Redshift. Okay, and that is what we want to do right here. But before we can do that, we are going to create a connection. So I will click create connection. Now that we have clicked create connection, how do we want to connect? We want to connect using username and password. So I will check this, and then the name of the database that this has given us by default is dev. You can see the database name must be 1 to 64 characters. That means we can change this if we want, but I will leave it as dev. Okay, and then I will come right here and I will put my username. Remember the username that you created before when we were provisioning this cluster, when we were creating this cluster, and also the password. So that is what you are going to put right here. Okay, and then you say create connection. Close this. Now it's trying to create a connection. It says your database connection dropped and was reconnected. Okay, you might need to recreate the variables. Okay, I think we are good with this. Now if you look at this, now we have created connection. You have AWS data catalog. Okay, this one, close this. Okay, and then you have your dev. Remember, that's the dev, the database. The schema is public, and then we have the tables. But right now you can see no table, no views, no functions, no stored procedures. You can see no stored procedures, all are 0. Then all are 0, right? Then you can see this sample data dev. Remember that when we were trying to create this cluster, we were being asked if we want to check that box that asks us to load the sample data. We did not check that, and that is why you see that this is blurred right here. So we don't have any sample data, which we don't need anyways, which is good for us. We don't need it right now, so we don't need to put that. But we don't have any table right here. Okay, so let me make a copy and paste of the table that I want us to create inside this. So look at what I did. Create table if not exists. Okay, remember we have our database already, which is the dev. Okay, and you can see right here we have dev. Okay, you can see that's the only one I have, which is I have selected, and then I have this cluster right here. Okay, awesome. As you can see, this one right here, we are not using this, right? Even this, we don't have access to that. Okay, so now what I also did right here is that I did not select all the columns in that CSV. Okay, let me drag that right here just for you guys to see. You can see we have customer, we have count, we have country, we have state. I did not put count because I don't really need it. Country, because we know this is US data. California, we know this is only California data, so I took this out. and I took some other data out. This longitude, latitude, all these ones, I also did not use them. That's fine. If you want to use them, you can use them in your own data. That means that you just need to add them to this create table command as part of these columns. Okay, so for those of you that have that don't know how to create table, if you go to my channel, I have so for those of you that probably don't really understand what is going on right here in terms of these SQL commands, I highly encourage you to go to my channel, where I have a complete PostgreSQL playlist right here. I have about 32 videos right here that can help you to get going in SQL. I will also put the link to this playlist in the description below. Okay, very good. But ultimately what I'm doing right here is I'm creating this table and all these different columns right here, you can see, and then I'm also putting their data types right here. If you want, you can change the data types just the way you want it. Take for example, I did pretty much all the variable character. I used 255 characters. In your case, you can decide. Take for example, gender is male or female. You can say, okay, you want your variable character to be 30, okay, 30. So it depends, but I just wanted to make this as simple as possible. Okay, so now we are going to be creating our table right here. Okay, so what I will just do is I will just run, and then if we have any error, then we will try and debug. But let us run this and let's see what happens. Okay, very good. You can see create table if not exist. Seems this is working right here. It returns 0 rows because we don't have data right now. If we want to check, we can come right here and do a select star from what is our table name. This is the table name, customer churn. So I will do this, I will highlight this, and I will run this. You can see right here, guys, that now we have the table right here. You can see, guys, we have the table right here. Okay, take note again that we took out some columns, that we did not put some columns right here. Some of those columns that we have in our Excel sheet, in this our CSV rather, some of them we did not put it in our create table command. Okay, because we don't really need it. So I don't want to have too many columns that are not needed right here. Okay, so what you can also do right here, you can also come to this dev and right click and refresh. Okay, if you refresh, you can see now we have one table. Before it was 0, but now we have one. Okay, very good, guys. I hope you guys are getting this right now. Now take note, we have created table on our Redshift cluster. Okay, if you come back to our schematics again, we have created table on our Redshift cluster. However, we need to be able to crawl this Redshift cluster so that our Glue, we know, our AWS Glue, we know what schema is right here on our Redshift, what columns, what data types, and all of that. Okay, now, but before we do that, we need to also create what we call a connection to our Redshift in our Glue, in our AWS Glue. So let us come back to our AWS Glue. I think we have it right here. Let's come back to our AWS Glue right here and create a connection. So what this will do is that it will create a connection point from Glue to Redshift. It will create a connection point from Glue to Redshift right here. So what we can do is let's come to data connections, or you can come to connections. If I click this connections right here, okay, or I click data connections, you can see connections and data connections. They are both highlighted. That means you can go through any of these paths, or this, this right here. So I can say create connection. If I say create connection, let me give this connection a name. Okay, let me say it's going to be unique for your connection. So I will say connect redshift underscore ETL. That is the connection name I want to give it. Then what is going to be my connection type? I will come right here is Amazon Redshift. because we are trying to create a connection point from Glue to our Redshift. Okay, so I will click that. Okay, and then the next thing we want to do is we want to also look at this connection access. You can leave this, you can put description if you want. Then the connection access, it says provisioned Amazon relational database service instances. What is our database instance on our Redshift? Remember, this was the Redshift cluster that we created. So we select this. You can see that immediately we selected this, it brought out the database name for us right here, because that is the database name that we have for this cluster. Okay, and then what is the credential type? I want to use username and password. So now this is our username that we created previously, and then I need to put a password. So I will come right here and I will paste my password. Then I will say create connection. Very good. We have created a connection right here. You can see connect Redshift ETL. That is our connection. Okay, so this is basically pointing Glue to our Redshift cluster, to that particular Redshift cluster and the database. I hope you guys are getting this right now. Okay, now the next thing I would like us to then do also now is to crawl the Amazon Redshift. Remember, we have our Redshift. Go back to your schematics. Let us now use this Glue catalog to now crawl this as well. We want to crawl this as well. Okay, so because if we crawl this, then we can have that inside this. Then we can also have the Glue data catalog. Okay, so that eventually this can go in. Maybe I should have put another arrow right here that says that this AWS Glue is also, is also crawling this Amazon Redshift. But I hope you guys understand what we are talking about right here, right now, because we are going to crawl that. Okay, so now what we are going to do is that also one of the thing is that keep in mind that even if we crawl this, the data is coming, the actual data is coming from Amazon S3. Okay, and which is the more reason why it's not necessary to point the arrow right here, but I hope you guys understand what we are talking about right here. Okay, so we are going to crawl this also for us to be able to load data inside. Okay, so now what we'll then do is we'll come to crawlers. Let's come to crawlers right here. Let us create another crawler. I'll say create crawler. Okay, and then this crawler is going to point to Amazon Redshift. Take note. So I'll give it a name. You can put description. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this anymore because we have already explained how crawler works. Okay, so we'll just move faster right now. So now we want to create a database or a data source right here. Okay, so I will say add data source. Okay, so now what is our data source right here? Because for this one it is no more S3 because we are crawling Redshift. So we'll choose JDBC. Okay, we'll choose JDBC and then select a connection to access the data sources below. Okay, so now what is our connection? Connect Redshift ETL. Remember that we already created this connection. When we created this connection to Redshift, we already said this is the Redshift cluster and this is the database, and we already gave it username and password. Okay, so it has access to that, and that is the more reason that you need to select this connection. So that means when you are adding this data source, you are already telling that the data source is this particular Redshift cluster and this particular database. Okay, now it is now asking that we should include the path to our data source. If you remember, our database is called dev. So see something, guys. If you look at it, it says type a database /schema/table. Okay, or database/table. But in our case, we have schema. So if I come back to to my Redshift cluster, you can see we have our database is dev, cluster is public, and the table is this one right here. You can see that customer churn. Okay, so now let us come back right here. I will say database is dev, then I will say public is the schema, then table is the customer churn. Okay, I hope you guys get that right now. Okay, now we will then come right to additional metadata. You don't need that. Then I will say add a JDBC data source. So I'll click that. So now that is our source. We already have an idea of that when we did for S3. Then I will say next. Now I am role. We already created that before. I will assign this. Okay, security configuration. Just say next. Again, here, right here now, you now need to have a database. Okay, remember that when we did for S3, we add a database, right? I already explained that to you. So in the case of this one also, we need to add database. So we need to say create add database. So it's going to come right here for us to create the database. You already have an idea of what we are doing right now because we did the same thing for S3. So I give it that name. You can see I say Glue Redshift. That means from Glue to Redshift database. So I will say create database. Now you can see that it is creating. It has created the database. This one is S3 Glue. That's for the from S3, right? And then this one is Glue Redshift. That means that we are saying Glue to Redshift right here. That's what. So that's how I'm trying to differentiate both. Okay. Now that we have that, the next thing is let's come back here and refresh and then assign that Glue Redshift. I will assign that. Okay, again, crawler schedule, let's leave it on demand. Advanced options, this is okay. Let's leave it the way it is. Okay, let us say next. So now let us click next. I click next. Now we have everything. Let us create crawler. Now you can see one crawler successfully created. Let's come back to crawlers tab. You can see right here, guys, we have two crawlers. Okay, this one created one table right here for us. So now what we can then do is that since we have created the crawler, we need to run the crawler. Okay, now let us run the crawler. So I will check this. That is the crawler. Remember for the previous one also, for the S3 Glue crawler, that was the same thing we did. So check this and then click run. So it's going to run the crawler for us right here. It says it's now starting. Okay, so it started and then it's going to stop. It's stopping right now, pretty much almost immediately. So let's see what's going on, guys. So this is stopping right now. I will not pause this video yet. I want to see something right here. So that we can see what's going on. I think this shouldn't take too much time. Or better still, to save some time, I will pause this video and then I'll come back again when the state change. Now guys, the state has changed. As you can see, we have states right here. It says it is ready and then it says failed. Unlike this one that says succeeded, this one failed. What's going on, guys? Let us come to view log right here. Let's come to view log. I will say click view log and let's see what's going on. Okay, it's loading. Okay, now this says that running start crawler for this. Okay, and then we add the error right here. Let's open this up. it says VPC S3 endpoint validation failed, right? For subnet ID, for this subnet, this VPC, it says the reason is that could not find S3 endpoints or NAT gateway for subnet ID in VPC days. Okay, so could not find S3 endpoint. Okay, could not find S3 endpoint. So that means we probably are having some issues with our Redshift right here. Okay, so it could not find S3 endpoint. That was why the crawler could not, could not finish up its job. So what we can then do right here is that let's go back to our Redshift, guys. So I'll come back to my Redshift right here. So what I can then do to fix this issue is that we need to enable endpoint service on our VPC service. Okay, we need to, by creating endpoint in the virtual cloud VPC. So what we can do, I know that's too much words right there, but let us come right here and say this is our cluster, right? This is our cluster that we have. So let's click this cluster. Let's click that cluster. Okay, this is our cluster. And then let's come to, let's come to properties. I think properties. So we have our database name, we have the admin username, you have the we have the virtual private cloud VPC. Like I said, what we want to do is that we want to enable endpoint service, because if you look at what the problem is, it says that could not find S3 endpoints or NAT gateway for that sub ID, right? So what we would like to do is that, where are we again? Here, right here. So what we want to do is we want to enable endpoint service on our virtual private cloud, okay, by creating an endpoint in this VPC of this cluster. So now we come to this cluster, come to VPC. If I click this, now it's creating a new tab for me. Okay, that is this VPC. We want to enable an endpoint service. So I'll come right here, I'll look for endpoints. So I'll create endpoints. Okay, and then what I'm going to do right now is that I'm going to do create endpoints. Okay, if I do create endpoints, and then I need to give it a name, but it says it is optional right here. Okay, I will not give it a name then because it's optional. That's fine. And then remember that the error was talking about S3 endpoints. Okay, because of that, I would come right here, these different resources right here, it says AWS services. So we want to create S3 endpoint. So I will say I can come right and then search for S3. Let's see what it's going to bring out. Search put S3 and press enter. Now you can see that it gave us these 4 different services. Okay, and if you see what it says right here, it says could not find S3 endpoint or NAT gateway. So right here, I can come right here and then just select this gateway right here. I hope you are getting that right now, guys. And then it's saying select VPC. So which VPC am I trying to create this endpoint? Okay, this is the VPC I want to create this endpoint, because that is the VPC for this cluster. If you look at it, the last four characters are 5BD8. 5BD8. You can see right here 5BD8. Okay, so I'm creating an endpoint inside this virtual private cloud VPC. Okay, now the next thing also is you need to also you also need to add the so right now what you also need to do is that you need to add this endpoint to a route table. So we have a particular route table right here. So I will check this so that I can add the endpoint I'm creating to this route table. You can see this route table is 299C. Okay, I've selected that. You see, when you use an endpoint, the source IP address, for instance, is not in your affected, so you can go ahead and read that. But basically what we are doing right here is that we created an endpoint for S3, right, so that we can have access to that, and then we attach that endpoint, okay, to this VPC, okay, and then we also do that to this route table, and that is why we just added. You see that it says the VPC in which to create your endpoint, and this VPC is for the cluster that we are working on. As you can see, this is the VPC right here, guys, okay, and then we added it to this route table. Okay, we are also saying, okay, full access, and then we can say create endpoints. You can see right here, successfully created the VPC endpoint. If I come to this endpoint, you can see this endpoint. We already have this endpoint right here. This endpoint is inside this VPC ID. Okay, it's a gateway, and then that is done. This is the route table. Okay, so now what we can do is, let's go back to our crawler and try to crawl it again. Let's see if we can be able to successfully, run this. So I will say run. I just click run. You see the state says it is running. Okay, you can see, unlike before, that when we did running, almost instantly it changed to stopping, and I'm guessing that was because we did not have that endpoint. But now we are in this running state for some time now. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause this video, and then I'll resume back again after the state changes, okay, because this might take some few moments. Okay, all right, see you guys. All right, guys, now you can see that the state has changed to stopping. Okay, so now we are in the stopping state right now. So that means in the next few seconds or minute or so, we should have this completed. Okay, so I will pause this video again and then resume back when the state changes. Now guys, you can see the state has changed to ready, and the last one says succeeded. You can see, very good, we are able to crawl this right now. You can see one table created for that. So if you come to tables, you can then see right here, guys, that for the Redshift cluster that we crawled, we have the table name, which is a combination of the database, the schema, and the table name itself. That is what he gave it right here. Then the database, then the location, right, then the Redshift. You can see also right here that for the one in S3, there is a table data that we can view, but for this one there is no table data because we don't have any data on our Redshift. The only thing we have are the columns, the table and the columns that we created. Okay, very good, guys. Now if you go back to our schema, you can see now that we have been able to create table on Redshift cluster, and we have been able to make a connection from the Redshift cluster to our Glue, AWS Glue, and also we have been able to crawl it and then have the metadata in our Glue data catalog. Okay, very good, guys, very good, guys. Now the next thing we would like to do is then be able to bind these two crawlers together, because remember, we have crawler for S3, we have crawler for the Redshift. So for us to bind those two crawlers, we need to create what you call a glue job. Okay, we need to create a glue job, and what that will do is that will help us to be able to automate this process. Okay, because when you have the glue job, and then you can then be able to trigger that job, and the job is going to be crawling, it's going to involve crawlers crawling the S3 and also the Redshift, and then loading and then having access to that data catalog where you have those data already. Okay, so that is because it is the glue job that we are going to be using in our Airflow. Okay, you're going to see how we are going to be doing this. That this is interesting, guys. So now let us come to ETL job. Okay, if you click ETL jobs right here, that's your glue job. Remember, it's an ETL process we are working on, and then you can have it right here as visual with the source and target. Okay, so now now we want to do a sort of mapping between our source data and our target data. What is our source data? We know that our source data is S3, correct? And then we know that you can see if you click on this arrow right here, we know that we have S3 as our source right here, and then we have our target to be Redshift. So I will click this right here. Okay, now that I've clicked that, and then I can say create. So if I click create, now you can see what I have right here. So what I basically have right here is the visual of, you know, what my ETL process is going to look like. Okay, now what I can also do is that I can give my Glue job a name. I can give it a name. So I'll come right here on titled job. I can just click right here, highlight that. I can delete or backspace, and then I can paste the name I want to give it. This is the name I want to give it. S3 upload to Redshift Glue job. Click outside. Okay, now I've clicked outside. Now let us come right here to this S3 bucket. Okay, and let us start doing stuffs right now. Okay, so now I've clicked this S3 bucket, okay, which is our source. Take note, that is our source, and you know, by default AWS gave you this name. Now where is our data coming from? Remember that even though our data is from the S3 bucket, but we already created Glue job, I mean crawler, and you know, we have a data catalog for that also already. So I will just select data catalog. Okay, now you remember that when we created Glue job to crawl our S3 bucket, we also created a database where I told you that that database is a temporary database that the AWS Glue is going to be saving our metadata and data, right? So I will go ahead and choose the database right here. Okay, so which database is for that? That's S3 Glue. Okay, I will click that, and then what is the name of the table inside? Let's see what you have right here. Use wrong parameters. No, leave that. Let's come to table. Then what is that table name? This is the table name for that. Okay, and then I think that should be it. While we are selecting this, the AWS Glue already gave us an output schema. So now let us see how our table looks like. Okay, so what is the schema or the data types that AWS Glue has inferred for these different columns? Customer ID, string, count, country, state. Remember that on our Redshift, I did not create columns for count, country, and state. And this one, latitude, long, latitude, longitude. Okay, remember I did not do that, and also I did not create for CLTV. So you will see what we are going to do what we are going to do to that shortly. But these are the data types for these different columns. Okay, you can see that total charges, monthly charges are double. Okay, now if you quickly take a look at something, let me quickly show you something, guys. You see that these monthly charges right here that are double, you can see that it's something if you go back to my Redshift, what I called them is floats. Okay, I gave them float data type. Okay, but for something like this, let's look at it. Like for something like zip code that is long right here, okay, I gave it a data type of integer right here. Okay, so these are the things that some of those things that you need to research for you to be able to know which data type should you use. Okay, now this is what Glue has inferred. Data preview, you don't need to do anything here. That is good. Then let's come to change schema. Okay, so for this change schema, let us first of all drop because right here we are doing some transformation. Remember, it's ETL. This is extract, transform, and load. So now we are in this transform stage. Okay, now what we first of all need to do is let us drop those columns that we don't need, that we don't want to put in this our Redshift cluster. Okay, so I'm going to drop count. Just check this. I'm dropping country, I'm dropping states. Yes, let's continue. Zip code, I'm dropping long, latitude, longitude. Let's continue to check. Partner dependent, tenure months, multiple lines. What else? Contract paper billing, churn label. Churn label. Do I have churn label? Let's see. Okay, I have churn label. No, churn label, and also I have churn value. Okay, now let us see. You have churn label, churn value, churn score. I don't have churn score. We can confirm. No, I have churn score. Sorry, I have churn score. I have churn score. So I would uncheck this, but I don't have CLTV. I don't have CLTV. Yes, no CLTV. Okay, I don't have CLTV. Very good. Now you can see that. Okay, now the next thing I also want to then do right here is that if you look at the names of my columns right here, basically I put an underscore between two words instead of space, because if you have those space, if you have those space, SQL does not like that. Okay, and also aside from that, you want to make sure that the names that you have right here in your Redshift also matches the target key that you have right here. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is customer ID is good, city is good, zip code I'm going to put underscore. So what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to update all these different columns that have space. I'll put underscore between them. Okay, but I don't want to be here while you are doing them so that I don't bore you. So I'm going to pause the video and then resume later after I've changed all these spaces to underscore. Okay, so that is the transformation we are doing right here. Okay, I'll see you guys later. Let me go ahead and update this. Very good, guys. Now I've updated these target keys. You can see those ones that had spaces between two words before, I've updated them so that they have underscore between them so that it can match the columns that I have created on the Redshift. Okay, and then we are dropping some specific columns which we did not create on the Redshift. Another thing also that we would like to do right here is to do some transformation on some of those columns. Take for example this column that says long right here, because in the source data, if you look at it, take for example zip code is long, right? But we can say, okay, we want to do some transformation and make this long integer. So I will say integer. You can see that I can say integer. Then I can look for another long, tenure months, change it to integer, and then let's look for another long right here. Churn value, I can change that also to integer, and churn score, change that also to integer. Okay, I hope you guys get this right now. And then these ones that says double, I would leave them that way, because on the Redshift I already created them as floats, because Redshift does not have double, and therefore I use float. Let's see if that works. If it doesn't work, then we would try something else. Okay, so if you come back to the output schema, you can see that it has changed. You can see all those names that I put underscore, because we changed it. You can see the output schema has changed, and also the data types, integer. You can see integer, everything has changed. Okay, I hope you guys get that right now. Okay, now the next thing we would then like to do is we can come to Amazon Redshift. Okay, now for us to have the target, okay, which is your load. So we want to load into Amazon Redshift. It gave it a name like that, and then we can say the node parent is change schema. Okay, if you come to this transform, the node parent is the S3 bucket, which is this one right here. Okay, so for this Amazon Redshift, the node parent is this one, this previous one. Okay, now the Redshift access type. How do we want to access our Redshift? Okay, I could decide I want to access it through a direct data connection. It says this is recommended, but it doesn't mean that you have to use it. You could also say you want to access it through a Glue data catalog table. Remember that in our own case, we did both. We have the connection, we also have the Glue data catalog. Okay, anyone you use, you are still going to arrive at that same thing. So let's take a look at, let's say I select the direct data catalog, then it's going to ask me which connection. Then I will say connect Redshift ETL. And remember that for that one, we already have a database. You see that it populate this for me automatically. Dev schema. What's the schema? Public. You can see. And then what's the table name? You can see customer churn. We can check that. You can see, and then you can choose whatever way you want this data and the target table to be handled. So I can say append to target table. AWS Glue will append data to existing columns of the table and discard any extra columns. You can say you want to do some merge. If you click that, you can see you can be, how do you want to merge? On what key do you want to merge? You can say truncate. If you want, you can truncate. What that means is that for every time that you are loading, you are going to be truncating the table and then load all the data again for every job. Okay, so again, you can do append, and then if you want, you can also do truncate. Play around with any of these just for you to see what's going on. Okay, and that's how we are going to be learning. Okay, when you play around with all these things. So for me, let me just select truncate and let me use it for this project. Okay, and then you can assign the I am role. Okay, now but let me quickly come back to this. Let me show you. So instead of direct data connection, we could use Glue data catalogs. Let us see this as well. If I select this, you can see it's asking me which database. Remember that we have the database, Glue Redshift database. Okay, I can have that. Which table? This is the table, dev public customer churn. You can see that. I can say I want truncate. I can say I want append. You can see, you can play around with both and see what you get. Okay, now S3 staging directory. Okay, this is what AWS created for us. You know, it says choose an S3 location for temporarily staging data in the format, you know, all of this. So basically AWS is, you know, doing this for me by default. Okay, so like I said, you can either use any of these access type, and that was why I created those connection and this, so you can choose any of this. Then you can choose I am role. Which role? Remember we had created the administrative role for our Glue, so I will select that. And then this custom Redshift parameters, I don't need any of this. Okay, so I want to use Glue data catalog tables. You can also use data connection, that will also work. Okay, and also I want to use truncate target table. So each time I want it to be truncating the table, what that means is that it's going to delete all the data. The metadata is still going to be there. The columns, the data types, they are still going to be there on the Redshift cluster table, but just that all the rows are going to be deleted each time, and then it's going to recopy everything inside the S3 into the Redshift. Again, you can try this, you can try append, whatever. I just wanted to try this for this project. Okay, so now you can see that we have everything right here saved. Everything is working fine, and we've also given it a name. If you don't give it a name, I think this job is going to be telling you that you still have some error right there. One thing I also quickly want to show is that as you are doing all this, ETL visualization, doing things manually right here, this Glue job is creating a script for you. It's creating a script for you that you can probably use it for anything. For if you want to have the code live and you want to upload it somewhere, this is everything is already writing all these this script for you right here. This is the job details. Okay, this is the job details. If you come to job details right here, you need to come to I am role again right here and give it permission again. Give the job permission. So I will say administrative role. I'll give the job that role, and every other thing should be good. You can, if you want to adjust this, you can adjust the number of retries. But for this one, I will not put this because since we are going to be using Airflow, we can put the number of retries in Airflow instead of putting it right here. And then you have your job timeout. All this, you can play around with it as you want. Okay, so what I can do right here is I can come right here and say save. So now it's going to be saving. It's going to be saving my job. Okay. So now my job is successfully updated. Okay, now that we already have that, guys, what I want us to do is let us just try something out. Let us run this job manually. Let's just run it manually before we then go to Airflow to go and start creating different tasks for ourselves. Okay, let us do that. So now what we want to do right here is remember that in our S3 bucket right here, this one, we already have one file right here. So let me come to my Redshift. As you can see, if I run a select star right here, or maybe I run a select count, let me say select count. If I highlight this and then execute, you can see that we have 0 data right here. Okay, but then if we come to this job, remember that this job now has binded those two crawlers together. That is crawler for our S3 bucket and crawler for our Redshift. Now AWS Glue have an idea of our S3 and our Redshift, and then now if I run it, it's going to crawl both of them in fast schema and then grab those data from the S3 bucket and then put them on Amazon Redshift. Let us run. Let us see if it's going to be successful. If there is an error, we would try to debug that, guys. Let us run. Okay, these are started. Now that these are started, if you come to this tab runs, you can see that it says running. It has started run. That is the run state. So now it also generated, you can see job ID. So for every run, you have a job ID. These are the different metadata that you have for this: number of workers, worker type, timeout, all these different things. This is the job name. These are all the things we are going to automate later with Airflow. Okay, so right now I'm going to pause the video because it might take, I think, a minute or 2 minutes or something for it to run. So I'll pause the video and then come back when the run status has changed. Okay, now very good, guys. You can see now that the run status has changed to succeeded. Okay, so that means that this Glue job has finally run. It has finished running. You can see it took 1 minute 17 seconds. Now let us go back to our Redshift. Okay, again, what did we do right here? The Glue job connected to our S3 bucket, that's extraction, did some transformation, right, and then loaded that to the Amazon Redshift, and all because we had already configured everything in terms of crawling the S3 bucket, crawling the Redshift, creating data catalog, and doing all the loading. Let's go back to our Redshift. Let us run this right here, guys. If I click run, you can see right here now that we have the number of our rows right here now is 29, unlike before that we had 0 number of rows. Okay, and remember that right now we only have one data set right here. Very good. I hope you guys see now that our ETL job is running very well because we triggered it manually. Is running. However, in the real world, you will want to automate this process and make sure that it is running at a particular cadence, maybe weekly or daily, or or every 2 days, or what have you, and at a specific time. Okay, so now to automate this task, we now need to use our Airflow. Okay, so now let me bring back our DAG that we had created previously. Okay, so remember now we have our glue job, but we triggered it manually. Okay, but now we want to be able to trigger it using our Airflow, and we want it to be running say weekly. Okay, let's say weekly, we want to be running it weekly. So the first thing we want to do right here is to make some imports right here. I'm going to do some copy and paste right here. Okay, now that we have that, and then I'm going to have default args right here. For those of you that have been watching my Airflow series, now you understand what's going on here. But then for you guys that are new right here on this channel, so what I'm doing right here is creating some default args right here, specifying the owner. Is this that going to depend on past, start date? I can put any start date I want right here. Email on failure. Do you want to email on failure? I've done some other videos where I put the email on failure to be true, and then at that point when there was failure, there was an email that was generated, an email on retry. And I've also taught you how to also get notification on Slack before. For those of you that have not been watching my series, I encourage you, go to my Airflow series. I have Airflow series right here, Airflow playlist. Go right there and go through those videos and practice, and then I can assure you are going to learn a lot. Okay, now we have the default args. Okay, now as you know that we have imported this DAG right here, so we need to instantiate that. So I will say with DAG, okay, this DAG with DAG, then I'll give my DAG a name. That's my DAG ID. You can give it whatever name that you want, but in my case, in this video, I just want to give it my DAG. And then this default args, I'm assigning it to this default args, which is right here. Then schedule interval, I say at weekly. What does that mean? If you come right here, I'll give you the link to this description, to this link, to this page in the description below. You can see at weekly means that run once a week at midnight on Sunday morning. Once a week at midnight on Sunday morning. You can see that. If you want to use cron expression to write it yourself, you can also do it that way. Okay, now you have an idea of what we are talking about right now, guys. So I say at weekly, catch up, I say false. Okay, so with DAG as DAG, I put it as that. Now the first thing I want to do right here for you guys is I want to create my first task. So what we are going to do right here is we are going to create all the tasks in one go, and then we are going to trigger. Okay, so now I have an operator. I'm going to be using Python operator. I need to import that. Okay, so I will import my Python operator. This is how you import it: airflow.operators.python, import Python operator, and then I am giving it a variable name, glue job trigger, because that is what is going to trigger the glue job we are talking about right here. So this is the task ID I'm giving it, and then what this Python operator is going to do is that this Python operator is going to call a function. That is what is called Python callable. It's going to call this function right here, glue job S3 Redshift transfer. So it is this job. Remember that, guys, remember that we just created a job right here. We call it, the job name is S3 upload to Redshift glue job. This is the job name. Okay, So now we are going to create a function that this task right here is going to call to trigger that job, and that job is what will then do all the crawling of the S3 and then loading of that data set inside our Redshift. Okay, so I will do a copy and paste right here. Okay, and what am I doing right here? Okay, I'm passing a job name right here because we already have a job name. That's our Glue job. Then I'm passing a keyword args right here. Okay, then I'm creating a section right here, AWS generic hook, and this is going to help us to create connection between Airflow and AWS. Okay, so I'm going to import that. I'm going to import the AWS generic hook. That is what is going to help me to be able to create a connection between Airflow and AWS. And I'm going to give it a connection ID because we need to configure this connection. We are going to do that also shortly. Okay, so we are going to create a session right there. Then we'll say session.getSession. You need to put your region name. Okay, and the region, as you know, I've been using is Oregon US West, US-West-2. Okay, so this is going to be, I will call it boto3_session. So because this is what I'm doing right here, I want to get a client in the same region as the Glue job that I'm using, right? And that's why I put this region name. Now, the next thing is I need to trigger the job. But first of all, I need to specify which client I want. My client right here is Glue. Okay, so I call it client. You can give it different name that you want, and then I will say client dot start job. So this right now has given me access to some Glue methods. So I'll say start job run. What is the job name? Okay, I'll say, remember that right here I would have put the job name right here, which I'm going to show you. Let me show you right here. I put this OP keyword args. So this OP keyword args, I can specify different things right here in this dictionary, which I can get inside this keyword args. I can get it right here. Okay, so what I did right here is that I put keyword args, I put job name. Do you get that now? And what is this job name? S3 upload to Redshift Glue job. Okay, now this job name, I can easily get it from here. Okay, so I already have this job name. So this job name right here, I can easily just, get that job name from here. So what this is going to do is that it's going to trigger this job right here. It's going to trigger it. Okay, and we already know that because this is going to be the job. It's going to trigger this. Okay, very good. Now let us first of all see if we save this, if we be able to see something in our UI. That might take few seconds. Okay, let's come to our UI. Let us refresh. You can see we don't have anything yet. Let us give you a few seconds and it's going to be able to load right here. We'll be able to see our DAG. Give it a few more seconds, guys. Usually it takes some time. Let me refresh again. Okay, nothing yet. Let's give it more time. Let us refresh again, guys. Nothing yet. Okay, let's wait some more. Let us refresh again. Very good, guys. Now you can see, now we have our DAG right here, guys. Let me click this just so we see what's going on. Now you can see right here, guys, we have our first DAG. So what that means is that when we run this is going to trigger our job. Okay, now one thing you should ask yourself is, when you trigger this job, as you saw previously, when we triggered it, the run state was running, right? But how do we know that it has finished running? there is no way we would know from Airflow directly that this has finished running. Okay, but what we can do is that after we trigger that job to run, we can try to obtain the ID, because for every job run, an ID is going to be associated with it. This is the ID. So that means that all the latest or the recent run is going to be at the top. Okay, so we can write some code to be able to extract the ID so that we can then start monitoring the ID. And because when we monitor the ID can either show us that it is succeeded or it has failed or something. Okay, so we can monitor this ID before it then goes to the next task for it to to load the data inside the Redshift. Okay, so you can also play around with this function I'm going to be showing you right now to satisfy the way you want the function to look like. So what I will do right now is that I'm going to create another task. I'll call that task, I'll say grab Glue job run ID. Then I'll give you this task ID. Then I'll create a function that will say get run ID. Okay, so let me put this function right here for you guys. If I do this, what is this function doing? So first of all, what is going to happen is that after this first task runs, okay, and then we get to this second task, it's also going to be a Python operator which we have imported. What is going to happen is that it's going to sleep first for about 8 seconds. Because of that, I need to import time. Okay, time.sleep. It's going to sleep for 8 seconds. And why am I saying I want it to sleep for 8 seconds? For you, you can play around with, you can be 1 second, maybe 2 seconds is enough, but I didn't play with so much, time. But with 8 seconds, I think I'm fine. But you can try lesser, okay? You can try lesser. But what I am trying to say right there is that when this Glue job is triggered, right, is going to trigger this to run. And then when it runs, this state is going to be in the running state. It's going to spend some time to run, maybe like 2 minutes or 1 minute something seconds or 3 minutes, depending on, I believe, how huge the data set is, or maybe network connectivity and all of that. Okay, so I need to be able to grab this run ID. If I can grab this run ID, and then I can do whatever I want, with this Glue job. Okay, so now I will come right here and I will say, okay, first of all, sleep, so that at least I can be sure that the Glue job is already running after I triggered it in this first task, right? And then I will use my AWS generic hook again, as I did previously, and then I will get session. I will make a connection to my clients, my Glue client. Then I will say my client dot get job runs. Then I'll give it a job name. Okay. If I want, I could also do it the way I did this by passing the job name inside this function. You can decide to also do that. That's fine. Okay, but yeah, I'm just giving it a job name directly. I'm typing this job name right here directly. Okay, and then it's going to give me a response. So as part of the response, I want to obtain the recent ID, that is the job ID that was triggered by this first task. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say response, okay, because it's going to be nested JSONs and all of that. Then I will say job runs, then 0, that's index 0, which is the recent run, and then I will grab the ID. So that is going to give me the job ID, the job run ID. Then I can return that job run ID right here. Do you get that right now? So that means this function right here is going to be returning for me this job run ID. Okay, I am going to save this. Okay, now what that means is that if I trigger a job like this job, and then it is in running state, it's going to generate the job ID. Okay, and then my second task already obtained this job ID, and then I can use that job ID in my next task. Okay, which I call is glue job finish running. Okay, this is because I want to be sure that my glue job has finished running, that is, it has finished uploading the data set inside the Redshift cluster, just as we have it in our diagram right here in our schematics. I want to make sure that the glue job has finished running and has loaded the data inside the Amazon Redshift. How do I do that? I need what is called a glue job sensor. Okay, I will do an importation of that. I will import that right here from this provider. Remember, we installed Amazon provider before, and then I will import glue job sensor. Let me show you what that is. Okay, if you come to right here, glue job sensor, you can pass in the job name and the run ID. Now, can you now see the reason why I made sure I obtain the run ID of that job that is running at that time? Then verbose, I can set it to be false or true. Then the connection ID, then keywords, argument if you want that. So what does this say? This says wait for an AWS glue job to reach any of the status below. So that means that this glue job sensor would be able to tell me if the glue job failed, or stopped, or succeeded. Okay, so and that's why I told you guys that you can decide to make your function whatever way you want to show it. If you like, you can say, okay, you want your function, you want to really see if it succeeded or stopped or failed. You want to really see that. So you can, with this project I'm showing you can do diverse things that you want. So what is these parameters? This is the glue job name, which we already know. This run ID is the current running job ID or identifier, which we just said that our second task is going to help us to grab that. Our second task is returning this for us, is returning the job run ID. Okay, and then verbose, if true, more glue job run logs show in the Airflow task logs. So for me, I'm going to set it to true so that I can be able to see the logs from the job run on my Airflow task logs. Okay, and then there are different other things that you can pass right here. If you look, I'm going to share the link to that page with you. This also is another page that I found from Astronomer when I googled it. This also showed us more parameters. You see the verbose, run ID, job name, AWS connection ID, poke interval. You can say you want to be poking every 5 seconds or every 30 seconds or every 60 seconds. Okay, in this video, I'm going to be poking for 60 seconds. You can have timeout and a whole lot of other things, max weight and all of that. Okay, I'll provide this link for you in the description so you can explore that, guys. Okay, so now let us come back right here and save, and then we need to add the dependencies. By the way, let me explain what is going on right here. This glue job sensor, we have imported it. Okay, we have given it a task ID. I've put the job name right here, then the run ID. Remember that the run ID was returned by this previous task. So for me to grab that, I will say task instance. I'll put it in a Ginger template. You can see Ginger templating right here. Airflow supports that. I will say task instance dot xcom underscore pool. For those of you that have not been watching my Airflow series, xcom underscore pool would help me to pull the data that was returned by this previous task or by any of those tasks that I'm going to put right here. I'm going to put the task ID right here. You can see this task is this task, this previous one. So I'm saying that pull for me whatever was returned from this particular task. I can decide to put the first task also, and then I will grab whatever it was returned, okay? But for the first task, I did not return anything. Therefore, and by the way, I don't need anything there, but I'm just trying to tell you that xcom pull can be used to pull whatever was returned from any task that you are interested in, okay? Then verbose, I'm saying it is true. I've explained that. Then AWS connection ID, I'm giving it this connection ID. We are going to configure that shortly. Okay, poke interval, you can see I'm saying poke it every 60 seconds, and I'm saying timeout, that if nothing happens in 3600 seconds, you should time out. Okay, now what we can do is that we can put our dependencies right here. This is the first task, glue job trigger. That's going to trigger it, and then when it starts running, this task is going to grab the run ID, and then we are going to obtain that run ID inside this last task. And this last task, which is the glue job sensor, is going to be monitoring that job for us. Okay, it's going to be monitoring that job for us to know if it has finished loading to Redshift, or if it failed, or if it stopped. Okay, so now I think that is what all we have right now. I'm going to save that. Okay, we should be able to see everything propagate to our Airflow UI right now. You can see that we have all of that right now. We have our dependencies. So what I will do is I will come right here to our Redshift. Let me truncate the data that was there. Truncate table. I will say truncate table. I will put this. I will then run this. You can see now it returns 0 rows. If I do count and I run, now I don't have anything on this table right now. Everything is fresh now. Okay, now we have our DAG right here, our different task. Okay, we're going to trigger the job. We obtain the run ID, and then we will be poking to see if that glue job has finished running or not. Okay, let us see what's going to happen. But before that, let us come right here again. You can see if you come to runs, there is nothing that is running right now. Can you see, guys? There is nothing that is running, and we don't want to run manually. We don't want to run manually. We want to run using our Airflow. But then there is one more thing we have not done. We need to connect our Airflow to we need to set up the connection to our Airflow, to our Airflow to our AWS. Remember that we have connection ID. We call it AWS S3con. I will copy this, and that's the same one I'm using for all the everything that we are doing right here, all the tasks. You can see that for this first task, we have the connection ID right here. For second task, we have this connection ID. For the third task, we are also having the connection ID, the same one, okay? Because we want to have connectivity to our AWS service. So what we are going to do is we are going to come again right here, and we'll say admin. We go to connections, and then I'll click this plus sign, and then I will say connection ID. I'll put that connection, and then we'll come and we'll select AWS Amazon Web Services. Remember that we had already installed Amazon provider, Airflow provider. So I will select this. So now that I selected this, you can see that it's asking me for AWS key ID and secret access key. Go ahead and put whatever description you want right here, okay? But then I need access key and secret access key. So what I will then do right here is I will go back to my AWS console, okay? I'll come to my profile name right here. I click that, then I'll come to security credentials. I will click that. Okay, since this is the role that I'm using my root role. Okay, if it were to be a particular role that was created, then you have to create access key for that particular, if there was a user that you have created, which I showed in my previous video, this particular video right here, this Zillow, I created a particular user, and then you can create access key for that particular user. Okay, but for this particular one, I'm using my root user. Okay, so what I can do right here is that you can see that my access keys right here have deactivated these ones, so I can just maybe select them. You can only select one at a time, and then I can say delete. Let me just delete those first. Let me just delete. Okay, and then I can delete this, or if I like, I will not delete it this time, that's fine. But what you can see is that it says you can have a maximum of 2 access keys, active or inactive, at a time, and that's why I just deleted one. If I like, I can delete both of them. But let me create another one right here. Then you say create access key, click that, and then check this. Then you say create access key. Now you can see that I have my access key and I have my secret access key. I don't need to show this. However, before I publish this video out, I'm going to delete this access key so that you cannot use it. But you make sure that you don't lose it, otherwise you won't be able to configure your Airflow. But also you can download it as CSV right here. Like now, I just click and that is downloaded, so that in case if I mistakenly close this page, I can go to that CSV and get the secret access key and access key again. Because if you close this page, you cannot have access to this anymore. You cannot have access to this secret access key. You can see the access key, but you cannot see the secret access key. Okay, so I will copy this, and then I will go back to my access key right here. I paste it right there. Then I will go to my secret access key, copy this as well, and then I will come right here, and then I will paste this right here. You can see that, and then I will save. You see that added one row. Okay, let me close this. Let me go back to my DAG. So now we have been able to create a connection between Airflow and AWS services. We have given it access to our AWS services, okay, to be able to perform these different tasks that we have put right here. Okay, so now we'll click this, and then I will say graph, and then let us now run this again. You can see that our job, nothing is running. We only have one job right here. Okay, so we are going to click this, and then we are going to monitor. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is that I will just do trigger DAG. Okay, this is running. You can see that something happened right here. It triggered 2 jobs. Okay, but that's okay. But let's look at this first one. This first one that is running. You can see it says success. Success. What is going on right here is that this was able to trigger that job. Let us see what is going on. Let us go to this job. If I refresh this, you can see this is running. This is running right here, guys. This is running. Okay, and then we are also able to, you see, this second one, this job run ID also was successful. Okay, because this is the second one that will obtain that run ID. Is going to obtain that run ID. Okay, if I come back to this admin and I come to XComs, you see what is happening. You see, I was able to retrieve that job run ID, which if you look at the last 4 characters, 1804. If I come right here and I go to this first one, you can see 1804. We're able to retrieve that. Okay, however, I think we got some problems right here. We got our DAG failed. our dark field, if I come right here again, you can see that this field, if I click on this and go to logs, let's see what happens. It says no region error. Oh, you must specify a region. Okay, you must specify a region. So what is happening right here is that we need to specify a region for our AWS. Okay, so what we will then do in this case is that we need to install AWS CLI, and then we can configure our AWS. Okay, and remember, we already obtained our secret key and secret access key. Although you can see this is running, you can see that our Glue job is running. Okay, but we will not be able to tell if it runs successfully or not, because this last task that's supposed to tell us failed, because it failed for this error that we need to specify a region. Okay, so what we can do right there is that let us come to our EC2 again and then check that and then connect. Let us just connect so that we can install our AWS CLI. Okay, so what we will do now is that since we have connected, let us activate our virtual environment again. You remember how we do that? We will paste this source customer churn YouTube venv/bin/activate. So now I've activated that. So what I will then do now is to install the AWS CLI. So I'll come right here, I'll do paste, I'll paste pip install -- upgrade AWS CLI. That way I can install the AWS CLI. Okay, now if I am able to do that, what I will then do, now that is done, what I will then do is to configure my AWS. Okay, I would right click this and I will paste. Okay, I'm going to have AWS configure. Before I do that completely, I want you to see something right here. In our EC2, we don't have any AWS folder right here, you can see. But if I come right here and I click enter, it's going to ask me for the access key. Remember that I had my access key right here. I will check that. Okay, I will check that and then I will come back to this place. I will paste. Now it's asking me for secret access key. I will copy this and then I will also paste, and then it's asking me for the region name. So what is my region name? US-West-2. So you have to pick your own region name. Remember the region that you have been using, where you have your Glue jobs and all of that. So I will say enter, then I will say enter. Okay, now everything should be working fine now, guys. Okay, now let us go back to our Airflow right here. Okay, for some reason this triggered two jobs at the same time. I'm guessing maybe that was because that was the first time we ran this, maybe. But let's go back again to our graph right here and let us trigger again and let us see what happens. But let us first of all check if the previous one ran successfully. You can see this one ran successfully. It ran successfully. However, we could not sense it because we did not specify a region for our AWS before. Okay, but then if I come back to this editor, my Redshift cluster, if I run this count statement, let's see, you can see that we are able to upload data. So it worked fine, but the only thing is that we could not ascertain, we could not sense it, we could not use the AWS Glue sensor, right? Because it's errored out. Okay, so now let us truncate this again. If I truncate, it has truncated. If I count again, you see that it should be 0. Very good, it is 0 now. Okay, now we just said that this one is succeeded. Okay, that is good. And also one thing I wanted to show you right here, you can see that now, because we have done the AWS configure, that has created a .aws folder here for us, which if you click it, is going to have config and credentials. If I click config, you can see that is the region name right now, which I put. Then credentials, this is my credential access key and the secret access key. Though I'm not supposed to show you this, but that's fine because I'm going to delete this access key shortly, okay, before I post this video. Okay, I just want you guys to understand everything that is going on right here. Okay, so now let us come back to this and let us trigger again. So I'll click trigger. So now you can see only one is triggered. So I'll click this to show it. I'll go to graph. You can see we have triggered it. This one is running. Remember, it's going to first of all sleep for 8 seconds before it now obtains the job ID. You can see that it has obtained the job ID. Now this last part is running, because this last part is what is going to tell us if it was successful or not. Now it is running. It is poking. It is poking the Glue job to know the state of that job. Let's come to this, right? We said this one, it triggered the job. Let's go to our Glue job and let's see if truly it was triggered. You can see when you refresh it, you can see that it is running right now. You can see this was the first two that we did. This is what that is running now, and this one that is running now, if I check this, you can see that I have a job run ID. It is still in the running state. However, my second task is going to grab this job run ID. Let us confirm. The last 4 characters here is E799, right? So let us come right here to our admin, xcoms. You can see E799. You can see that. So it is this job ID that we pass to this last one. So now this last task is helping to monitor what is going on in that job, in that Glue job, as the Glue job is currently running. You can see that. So you can see succeeded. It has finished running. Let us see what our DAG says. This is running. It's still trying to check. Let us go to the logs. Let's go to the logs. You can see all the logs. Remember, we said that we put verbose to be true. We put verbose to be true, and that is why we are seeing all these different things in the logs right here. Okay, so it's poking, even though that has succeeded, but remember I said it's going to poke every 60 seconds. So let us see the first time it poked. Let's see if we can get that somewhere here. Let's see. Now you can see that it has finished running because it has poked again, right? Let us see the first poking. Let's see if we can see something that has to do with poke right here. Bear with me, guys. If we can see poke, we should be able to see it somewhere. Dependency, starting attempt. Okay, you can see executing. It's executing. Okay, you can see right here, guys. It says poking for job run status. Can I make this bigger? Okay, poking for job run status. You can see what is the job run. This is the Glue job, and then this is the ID. You can see E799. So it's poking and then it's checking everything. So maybe the first 60 seconds it didn't get it, then it's going to check again. Every 60 seconds is going to check. It checked the first time, it didn't see it, wait for another 60 seconds, then it pokes again. If we go down, I'm sure we are going to see another poking right there until finally there is a success criteria met. You can see exiting, marking task as success. You can see right here, guys, that we got everything being successful. You can see that guys right here. So that is what you are going to be seeing. So what happens is that you can see our job run is successful, our task Airflow, we can automate this process. That is what we have used Airflow to do. And if you go to this edit, if you go to this editor, this Redshift editor, I can also check. Let me check. You can see I have 29. You can see if I want to just do select star, if I want to just do select star from this table, if I do this and I run it, let's see our data. You can see the data right here, guys. You can see the data right here. You can see we have city, all this. You can see we have our data, monthly charges, total charges. You can see we have everything right here. I hope you guys now see how we can use Airflow to automate this process. We downloaded this file manually, we put it in S3. I told you that let's assume that there is some process upstream that loads data into this Amazon S3 bucket, and your job is to create AWS Glue to be able to grab those files, crawl them, and then load them into Amazon Redshift. Okay, and because as part of Glue job, right, those data are in the data catalog, you can use Athena as a data analyst to write some query, okay, to see what's going on in the data, to see what information you can get, what insight you can extract from that. You can do some quick SQL pull right there. You can see how we can use Airflow to automate these guys. Guys, if you are finding this video valuable, I will encourage you to please go ahead and subscribe to our channel and click on that bell so that you can be notified whenever we release any of our videos. And also please help us to like these videos. As you know, the more you like the video tells us that you guys are finding it valuable, and that will also help us to rank higher by the YouTube algorithm, and also it's going to motivate us even to do more, because it tells us that we are not just wasting our time making these videos, teaching you guys all these things. It means that you guys find it valuable, therefore we will want to do more for you guys. Okay, I hope you guys get that right now. One thing I'm also going to do right now, guys, is that as you know that in our S3 bucket we only have one file right here. What I can also do is that let me also put the second and the third file also, and then let us run the job. Let us run the job again. Okay, let us run the job again. So I'm putting the third and the fourth, the second and the third file. Okay, so that means now we have 3 files inside here. And remember what I told you guys when we were creating, you know, the our job. I said that I want the data inside my Redshift to what? To truncate. So I don't need to run this truncate statement anymore, because I said truncate for me. Okay, that means remove all this data, right? But all this data, these columns and the data types, those are still going to be there. Truncate it for me and then load all the data afresh again. Do you understand that now? But I told you, you can explore it. You can explore all the different options there so that you can see what you get. You can explore the append. You can explore, if possible, the merge. I think for that merge, you will need a merging key, you know, which maybe you might not be able to do that. But then you should be able to explore the append and the truncate method that you have in that Glue job. You remember I showed you that. So now what we can do now is that we have these 3 data sets right here, and then we will come right here and then we will run this job again for the last time, after which I'm going to stop this video, and then we are going to go to the part 3 where we are going to be connecting Power BI to our Redshift. Now guys, let us have our graph, and let us okay, let's come to DAGs and click our DAGs, come to graph so we can see it, and then I can do execute. That's trigger DAG. Now I can click on this small box so that I can then go to graph and see what's going on. You can see this has triggered the job. If we go to this runs, you can see it is running. If I select this, you can see this is the job ID, which I've already showed you. You can see it in the XCOM tab right there, or that drop down, this admin, this XCOM. We can easily see, you can see 10.8 AC, 10.8 AC. Okay, 10.8 AC. You can see 10.8 AC. You can see that, and then this, and then the final task is monitoring that job to make sure that everything runs successfully. Okay, we will wait for a few seconds and we'll see. I will stop this video and then come back to it after I finish running, and then we'll go further from there. Awesome, guys, you can see this is succeeded right here. It is succeeded. Okay, if we go back to our Airflow, you can see that this is running, and that's because it's still trying to poke, because you are poking every 60 seconds. Okay, so that means the next time it pokes, it's going to be able to tell us that, oh, this has successfully. But while this is still running, guys, if you find this video valuable, please go ahead right now and click that subscribe button. If you have not subscribed right now, go ahead and subscribe and click on the bell so that you can be notified whenever we release any of our videos, guys. Now you can see that this is successful right here, guys. If I click this and then I go to logs, you can see it says success criteria met, exiting. Very good, guys. Fantastic, guys. Okay, again, guys, please go ahead and click that like button if you have not clicked that. Okay, because that tells us that you really appreciate, or you really find valuable what we are doing for you right here. And the more we see people finding all this valuable, the more we are going to make such videos. Take for example, it's one of you guys that requested that we make this video for you guys, because I have a separate video which I had shown previously where we loaded from S3 bucket directly into Redshift. Okay, that one, this is the video. That one we did not use Glue. Okay, but this person wants to know how we can automate using Glue to load from S3 into Redshift and then connecting PowerBI instead of QuickSight, and that is what I have shown you guys in this video. Very good, guys. I'm sure you guys are finding this valuable. Let us come back to our Redshift cluster. Let us validate, and before we end this part of this video, if I run this, you can see I have more data. If I want to say the count, I can just say counts. You can see now, guys, I have 7,043, and that was exactly the number of rows that was said that they have in this data. You can see 7,043 customers. Okay, and which you can pretty much see right here that our count is 7,043 rows right here. I hope you guys are getting this right now. Again, please go ahead and like that video and go ahead and subscribe to our channel. All right, guys, we have been able to cover our schematics up to this level. Okay, now up to this level, then the next one is let us connect our Power BI to our Redshift cluster so that we can just do some visualization. I'm going to be showing that in the next part, in the part 3. All right, guys, see you. God bless.